Okay, in today's offering, I'm going to give you this Jack-in-a-Box announcer. In somewhat of a departure from normal, I'm not actually going to do a tutorial at this point. The reason being, I started to do a tutorial last night and I'd hit 40 minutes and all I'd done is told you how to make the box. So I think it's going to be a long one, so I need to rethink it and maybe do it over a couple of parts. In the meantime, I'm going to do a walkthrough of the Fusion comp and I will give you the settings file. All you need to do is head over to my Buy Me a Coffee page and it will be available via that. Okay, so all that being said, let's get on with it. Okay, head over to the Buy Me a Coffee page, there's a link in the description. If you then click on the Extras button, you'll see our offer here. Click on Get It or whatever it's called, put in however much you think it's worth. If you want to give me a couple of quid, great. If not, nothing is fine. Enter your email and stuff, pay, and then click the link. It'll take you to a Google Drive page. Just hit download and your file will download. Before we get started, just a quick rider to this whole thing. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, I built this on a 24 frame per second timeline, so it will only work properly on a 24 frame per second timeline. If you stick it on a 30 frame per second timeline, a little bit quicker, but I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. However, if you stick it on a 60 frame per second timeline, it's going to go like Billy Whiz. I might have a look at doing a version 2 that's more friendly, or I might do versions for 30 and 60 frames per second. Again, let me know in the comments. If there's demand, I'll do it. If not, I won't bother. So yeah, anyway, on with the show. Okay, so once you've been to the Buy Me a Coffee page and grabbed your settings file, this is what we need to do to use it. You need to come to your effects library, make sure it's turned on, come to effects and grab a Fusion comp and drop it on your timeline. What you need to do now is right click, change clip duration and set it to 15 seconds and go into Fusion. Next you need to open Finder or Windows Explorer or whatever it is you have and navigate to wherever you saved the settings file to. In my case it's here. Grab the settings file and dump it onto your timeline, or onto your node graph should I say. Now you should, if you do that, put it in so you can get rid of this media out if you want. You don't need it anymore. So here we are, here's the beast. What I'm going to do is I will work through it, and I'm going to start over on the left here and have a look at what we've got. So this pink area makes up the texturing for your box. It's fairly straightforward. You've got two background nodes. The first background node is masked to make the stripes. Second background node is just your base colour. Between them you've got your text, which is on a square background. The text can be whatever you want. You can style it however you want. using the inspector. So I use the shading tab, I set it to an outline, and I give it a colour. Now, to fill the page I've used duplicate nodes. So if you change the size of your text, you may well need to play with these duplicate nodes to get your text to sort of fit reasonably well. The whole lot of text was then put into a merge node, into a transform node, and turned round, and then everything was merged together to give you your text. So if you want to change your wording on your text, that's where you do it. Next we come to our box, or boxes more accurately. Because of the way the animation works, I had to use two boxes. So if I just pop that into here. The first box is shape 3D3, and it's just a regular cube. I used a regular cube because I needed to displace it to make it breathe. And to make it breathe, I use the displace 3D node, which is driven by this gradient. As you can see, the lighter areas during the animation, the lighter that area, the more distortion you get in your 3D shape, and so we get this breathing effect. The next part of the animation uses this plane cube, and what that does is it opens flaps. The reason I had to use two cubes is if I distort this plane cube, I get gaps on the joins, and I didn't want that. The reason I had to use a plane cube here is because I needed the flaps to open at the top, and the regular cube won't do that. Hence we had to use the two different cubes. I've actually set it up so that at frame 47 one disappears and the other appears between 47 and 48. So that's why we've got two cubes. This plane cube at the minute is a group, which if you double click opens up, and you can see the cube is made up of 5 full faces and 2 half faces. So front, left, right, back and bottom are full planes, 3D planes, like so, and top left and top right are 2 half planes, which are your flaps. If you look in the settings for those in the transform, you'll see the animation for the flap is the Z-axis here. You can see the little keyframes, and what you'll also notice is the pivot point for them has been moved so that the pivot sits on the edge, so that it flaps from that edge rather than from the middle. So moving on from our cubes, the other bit that's in here is the floor. It's just a simple flat plane which I've coloured. What I've also done is animated the floor so that it should change size. Yeah, as the cube spins in, the floor grows. At the very beginning, when the cube's further away, there's no floor evident until it pulls in. Moving along, we have our particles. Now all the stars are particles basically. So as the animation progresses, the particles pop out of the box, fly up, shoot out, and then fall down onto the floor. In order to get this effect, there are several particle nodes. So you've got your emitter node, which makes the particles themselves. The emitter is keyframed so that it only, if you look at the number here, only produces particles for 2 or 3 frames. So it fires 100 particles, then 50 particles, and then none. So it's basically firing 150 particles and then it stops producing particles. They're set to go up at a velocity of 1.25. I put a little bit of spin on them, but that's kind of optional. I put an angle variance of 180 on the X and Y axes and an angle variance of 360 on the Z axis, and that makes them sort of spread out all over the shop. Now once they're going up, I needed them to come down again, so that's where the P direction force comes in. That pulls the particles back down. The direction -90 is down, and then 0.25 is the force that it's pulling them down with. Next in the particle stack is a P bounce. Basically this puts an invisible floor level with our actual floor and stops the particles falling through. So they hit that and they stop. So there, you see that the particles hit it and they stop at the floor. They don't go any further down. Without the P bounce, they'd just continue to fall. P bounce is set so that there is no elasticity, so the particles don't actually bounce. If you increase the elasticity, they'll actually bounce. The next particle node is P friction. P friction is there to stop the particles moving once they hit the floor. I noticed that without P friction, as the particles hit the floor, they then start to drift off the sides and then fell off the edge. So to stop them moving, P friction. Very low friction amount, otherwise it starts affecting them in flight as well. Finally your P render, which basically renders your particles, and then all that's merged onto our box, which is what you're viewing at the minute. Okay, so I'd got as far as the orange box last night and it took me over an hour, and when I edited the video down it was 40 minutes, so I figured I've still got all this to do, it wasn't worth doing in one. What I might do at some point in the future, if you want me to, is actually do the tutorial but maybe do it in 2 parts. Leave a comment below as to what you want me to do. If you like this kind of walkthrough format, let me know. If you don't, equally let me know. So yeah, anyway, moving on. Particles we've done. The next bit, the green box, is our logo and our stick for our little sign thing going on. So that's keyframed to pop up at the same time as the lid pops up. All that is controlled through this merge node here. So the stick and logo have their own merge node, and then that's merged with another 3D merge onto the main sort of 3D scene. Having this merge node here lets me align the stick, align the logo, and then animate the whole as a unit, rather than trying to animate the stick and then animate the logo at the same time. So on this we've got the stick, which is basically a cube that I've shrunk down. Very simple, nothing too complicated. To make the stick look a bit more wooden, this is a fast noise node that I jiggled the settings and jiggled the colours, and then I just attached it to the material as a stick. The logo is a PNG file, and at the top here is a loader node. If you select that loader node, click browse, and it will open up a dialog box, and you just navigate to wherever your logo is saved. Double click it, open, whatever, and it loads it in. Once it's loaded in, you can then use this logo transform node to resize it. You can then use this logo position node, which is actually an image plane, and if you come to transform and use the Y translate, you can move that up and down on the stick so that it lines up properly with your animation. Otherwise, potentially at the start of your animation, when the box is closed, you're going to have this poking above it, and you don't want that. Once you've got all that set up, the third element is this bit here, the text, and that text is this text that reveals. Basically it's just regular text plus node piped into an image plane and then positioned at the top of your logo. The reveal is done with this rectangle, so if you review this, you've just got this, and it's animated so that the rectangle masks it or reveals it. The way the text is set up with this blue border, if you come into logo text and go to shading, what I've done is I have opened this drop down menu. So effect 1 is just your text. If you come down to effect 4, this is a blue border. So in here you can change the colour to whatever you want, and you can reposition or resize it. So if your text is longer than mine, you can drag it out a bit. Although if you go beyond there, obviously you're also going to need to adjust your mask. You can also offset here if your text doesn't quite sit in the middle of your box, you can offset it. So that's your text reveal. If you don't want that to happen, simply come to the text and delete whatever's in there, and then it won't happen. So that's our text, our logo and our stick. And then finally we come to the last bit, which is the full scene. And we've got our camera and a couple of lights just to light the scene up and make it look pretty, and all that goes to your media out, and that's basically it. Yeah, as I say, it's quick enough to walk through it. It got quite long-winded trying to explain all the steps, but if you do want me to do that, I'm happy to do it. We go back to the edit tab, give this a second to cache, and if you hit play, we have our effect.